we are up and running now. Yeah, I always joke every time I get one of these off the ground, I'm excited, and usually it's more of a joke, but now I actually am. So we're talking coverages tonight, understanding coverages, and specifically, talking about the Canadian game. But first, I want to just introduce our guest, Coach Eric Colonna from Pick Six Athletics. Thanks so much for being here tonight. I know, we've been excited about kind of doing this for a while, and I'm really excited to, go through some CFL clips tonight, and learn a little bit more about how you see coverages and from an athlete's perspective, look at how you can better understand the basic coverages that I think are played from, whether you're a 12-year-old, all the way through university. There's kind of that different families of coverages that you can learn and better understand. So before we get into that, though, do you want to, let everyone watch and have a quick introduction to you and your platform as well, which does incredible content that we're huge fans of here at 3 Down Development?
Yes, sir. Appreciate it. I'm glad to be on here. We've been talking about doing this for a little bit now, and it's great to come on and give back to our Canadian athletes out there. There's not enough content out there for all the Canadian football players. So, that's why we got to come on and share that knowledge that's been given down to us. So my name's Eric Colonna. Right now I'm playing football at Queen's University. I'm a defensive back. And I've been playing football since I was about 9 years old. So I'm from Mississauga, played at St. Marcellinus, shout out there. And like you were saying, in Canadian football, it's pretty much the same coverages. They just get a bit more complex as you move up. So you got your man, cut, hold, cover fours. It's pretty much just all those in different shapes and forms of it. So Pick Six Athletics, you see right here, is a defensive back and athlete, football training platform. If you go on Instagram or YouTube, TikTok even, just go at Pick Six Athletics and you could really check out what we're all about. There's lots of stuff posted on there for specifically defensive backs. There's film review for all football players, but you'll find a lot of cool athletic looking workouts, which will get you bigger, stronger, and faster. So football players, DBs, or anyone who just wants to become a better athlete or, more athletic as an individual. We got mentality posts also. Give Pick Six Athletics a look. But for right now, we're going to hop into the coverages and teach you a little bit about the Canadian game.
Absolutely. So I'm just going to pull up some of the clips that we're taking a look at here today, some CFL clips, kind of talk about understanding basic coverages, and how, from an athlete's perspective, what does that look like? And how can you as an athlete better understand, your role within these coverages? And then also, as a coach, if you're watching this from a coaching perspective, how can you better package the information you're looking for your athletes to understand? And again, I think one of the biggest things is, like, in the Canadian context, coverages are different, right? Like you hear in the States, like, you're looking at, cover one, and they talk about cover three and cover two. And it's so different than the way coverages actually play in Canada. There's a lot you can take and translate from those games and quarters coverage and that stuff. But Canadian coverages, because of the challenges that we face, A, with the formations we see having one more player, B, with the unlimited motion, right? Like there's some things that are commonplace in the American game, bigger space, that aren't as relevant to us. And there's some problems that we deal with that are completely foreign to guys playing, in the States. So we're going to start just with basic man-to-man coverage. I'll run the clip here. You walk us through what we're looking at with kind of basic cover one, which is a great starting point to understand the Canadian game.
Would you mind just keeping pause for one more sec?
Yep.
So I just like to go before we start. I just want to give 5 tips for pre-snap, what you got to do before the play even starts. So number 1, make sure you always get your film study in. You want to make sure you watch film on the receiver in front of you, the offense, so you got a good understanding of their plays. Some different things to look out for could be the down and distance. Is it 1st and 10, second and long, 3rd and short? Think about what they're going to try to do. Pre-snap, what you got to do before. How much time is left? If they don't have a lot of time, they might be trying to get the ball deep. Are they trying to run the clock out? What part of the field are they at? Are they in the red zone? Are they, back up at their end? You think maybe they're going to punt it soon? Also, pay attention to the formation. Do they have a lot of big, fat guys in trying to block you? Or do they bring another receiver in to throw the ball? Then tip number 2. So that was the first one. Look at alignment for yourself. Like, are you going to be inside the receiver or outside of him? If you're, here, I'll just annotate a little bit. Hope this works nice. If the receiver is lined in far inside, you might take a outside shade just because there's a lot more like space out here that ground that you have to cover. So look at like inside or outside alignment. Also, how deep you're going to be is another thing to pay attention to in alignment. Some coverages will have you playing short. Some you'll line up further back. Depending on your position, you might be 15 yards off. So that's just all things that your coach will talk to you about, and you'll just get a feel for, maybe with how far the sticks are, or just what the certain play calls for. Then one more tip, which I really like to do. Some teams like to, flatline everything and keep everyone looking the same pre-snap. But what I found really helped me in high school, which a lot of you guys will probably find could help you, is if you move around. So like start further back, and then come up here, and then move back again, just to mess up the receiver. Because if you think about it, the receiver comes to the line with a plan in his mind. And if you're moving around, it just makes him second guess himself. So he doesn't really know what to do. Just 3 other quick tips. Have a nice athletic stance. What I like to do and what we like to do at Queens is touch the ground, so you know that you're staying low. And being low as a DB is half the battle right there. Have your eyes in the right spot. So look in for any motions, because especially in Canadian football, these guys will motion. He'll come there. They'll just do a bunch of different motions around there. And you guys got to talk about that as a whole group. Last one's communicate. So you want to talk before the play, say, hey, I'm high, I'm low, or just go over the coverages. And then, during the play also you want to talk, because, communication as a defensive back is pretty much the biggest thing in there. If you're on the same page, doesn't matter if you're doing the right thing or the wrong thing. If you're all playing the same way, you're going to be able to cover whatever comes to you. So that's just 5 quick pre-snap tips, things to always be ready for before every play. So good to go into it now.
Awesome. And you can kind of see here, like some of the stuff that, Eric's talking about, you already see it developing as the receivers hit the line of scrimmage. You're going to have guys that change their depth on the back end. It might be based on game plans. You talk about watching film, like we're going to start with cover 1, right? All these guys are at different depths based on their their preparation. Right. So looking at the different depths guys are at, you kind of understand, hey, if this is more of like a big physical receiver who maybe doesn't run as well at the H, you see the Sam play that receiver a little bit tighter. Right. Whereas clearly, this Y can run because the halfback's playing further off. Right. You obviously have options at the corner here with these guys being on line of scrimmage that, they don't have that waggle that they can use to generate that speed. So you can, kind of play with that depth. Maybe that's more like disguising coverage, right? Like this looks maybe more like a zone contour, from the field corner. But obviously, especially as a high school player, like I feel like you can really, if you understand where you need to get to, you can really play with the pre-snap stuff. And it's just hard for quarterbacks with the prep time if you're able to disguise, even if it's just you, right? Even if it's not the whole secondary, but just you as an impact player can kind of change the picture for sure.
Should we just to make it like basic for everyone, should we explain what the coverage is before, then
yeah, that'd be great. Yeah. So if you want to drop cover 1 there, that'd be great.
Yeah, I got it. So cover 1, it's called, we'll make this basic. Cover 1 is 1 because there's 1 guy deep. So cover 2, there's 2 guys deep, 3, 4, and so on. So number 1, you got the free safety here, and he's deep. So that's his area. Red looks like it's coming up good. So yeah, cover 1 man is man coverage. So everyone's gonna be manned up. The corner will be on number 1. The halfback will be on number 2. And it looks like the Sam, in this case, strong side linebacker, will be on number 3. Then we got corner and half. So they're all covering. Then the 1 man deep. Then the linebackers in here will, someone might be keying the running back in case the running back runs out. Then he'll cover him. But other than that, they might either blitz or just expand to help cover the area in here. We call that the hole player. Anything I missed?
No, that's good. I mean, I think one of the things as a defensive back is like understanding like where your help is too. And again, there's a lot of different ways to play this. And in high school, like everyone's going to be in a different situation depending on like what their coach wants. But you can see here the leverage is like you talked about playing outside leverage. This receiver is super tight, right? So this halfback's playing outside leverage, right? And some people play cover 1 with outside leverage almost not no matter what, but with even with a wider split, because you, like you said, you have that whole player in the deep middle of the field and you have one of these 2 linebackers to be able to help you out in the middle of the field as well. It looks like they're outside leverage here as well. Every coach is going to be different on that. But understanding, okay, what routes can this guy run from this spot? Well, basically he can go under, right? Or he's coming back out, whether it's at 4 or 10 or to the corner, right? Like he's not running a slant route from there. So you can really, as a DB, even though it's man coverage, like with the help from the linebacker and the safety, and you're the leverage that you choose. So if he's super tight, playing with outside leverage, if he's super wide, right, he's only got so much space to go. So even though you don't have any help out there, you have the sideline. And I think that's a point that can help out a lot of young DBs.
Exactly. Know where your help is, and from watching film, you know what you should expect. So if you got help inside of you, low and high, and the sideline, then it's good to line up high outside.
Absolutely. And you see a play out here, like again, like the guy runs the out route, right? From the tight split, because the DB's in outside leverage, like he's able to play that pretty efficiently, right? Even though it's away from his help. In terms of like playing, like you see kind of like this off man technique here to the field, like you see both these guys keyed in on the receiver. What's your kind of coaching points like in man in general? We're going to talk about cover 0 and cover 2 man. How does off man, like what we're seeing in this case, kind of differ from other forms of man coverage?
So, off man, the three main types of man coverage would be press. So you're up 1 yard off the line, Canadian football, and American on the line. So, you're making contact or just staying with the receiver right from the start. There's also catch man. So you usually line up around 3 to 5 yards and just wait for him to come to you, make contact with him, then keep running with him. Then off man is you see here when DBs line up usually around 7 to 9 yards, and off man really just gives you more time to read the receiver or, look in and read the quarterback and just see what's going on there. So if it's a situation where you're expecting the ball to come out quick, sometimes, catchman's better because you're challenging the receiver and just making it harder for him right away. But it can really depend on like your strengths as a DB, what you like doing better, or what you notice with the receiver. Because some guys, even just covering like one-on-one, you'll notice some receivers, lots of receivers don't like getting hands on them. So DBs like to like press them, but other guys are just, they're really physical at the line, but they're slow out of the breaks. So you got to know your receiver and understand your assignment from your coach to decide like which type of man to play.
Absolutely. And I think like that's, again, coming back to like the preparation piece is so key because it's all about how much you can help yourself pre-snap, right? And you see that play out here with the out route. And ultimately, like we were talking about before, like this inside linebacker is able to get all the way to the second receiver, right? And that's why you can kind of play outside leverage because if you get these in-breaking routes, so if this is a post route, right, we've got the inside help. If this becomes like the slant or dig that it does, now the linebacker is able to help on it. And we'll kind of see like how the DB's demeanor is going to change as we get into this next clip. Really, really similar coverage. Again, you talked about, okay, cover 1. The key thing is you got that one vertical player. We still have that one vertical player, but you see a really different demeanor from the DBs in this clip. Why is it, when we're looking at, okay, now we're bringing a pressure, right? We're blitzing that whole player. How does that change, the man technique you're likely to see from the DBs?
So just let it play for just a sec until the linebacker blitzes. Yeah, so if you're blitzing the whole player, you're not going to have any help really in here. So you might want to take a bit slider of an inside shake because, you're not going to have help in there anymore. And also, you're going to expect the ball to come out quick if you're sending additional pressure. So just be ready to, read the receiver's first break and go off that. If you got a really good D-line and they're going to get to the quarterback quick, it's probably not going to be like a double move and up here. So just like with the blitzes, with the pressure, be ready to react quick and stay inside shade because those are the fastest throws. If it's an out route, it's just going to take longer for the ball to get there and you'll have more time to make up any ground also.
Absolutely. And you see it here too, like even in like we talked about, okay, there's still, this guy's playing off man, right? Maybe that's partially disguise, partially matchup. But you really see the more press element in here. And you see these guys, instead of being outside leverage, right, and kind of turned in because they know they have that whole help, right? Now they're playing, maybe more what people think about man-to-man where they're belt buckled to the receiver, and they're not – this guy is a true, like, safety as opposed to, like, a guy that's going to be aggressive and try and break on that, that dig route or that post route. those DBs are playing much more like traditional man, where, hey, you're by yourself and hopefully you get some help from the free player as opposed to counting on that help.
Mm-hmm. So with free safeties, normally, like, unless you want to help out one of the defenders more, can you just go back to the start when they're all lined up? Yeah, so normally what safeties would do is what's called a triangle read. So you got, and this will help you a lot in high school football, like quarterbacks don't really understand it at that level, so you'll be able to get a lot of picks, trust me with that. What they'll do is a triangle read. So the two most inside guys are your biggest vertical threats at the moment, like who's going to get downfield close to you. So what you do is like read these two players at the same time. Maybe if he needs more help out, you like help him out more and key to that side. But as you see one player, if he doesn't run a vertical route, if he runs like an in, then you could start to, if he runs like this, you could start moving as a safety to this side a little bit because you know that's where the other guy's going to be. So I'm not sure if I explained it too good, but like with the triangle read, you're kind of just like moving with the receivers and covering the deeper one out of the two. If they're both running deep, then you just split the difference and stay off. But like a big thing that'll help you as safety is if you could eliminate reads quick. Like if he runs under, then you just know that you got this guy to look out for mainly. And if they both do an under, this is a bit more advanced, then you know like this might be open behind them. So if you could see the reads quick, just understand who the vertical threats are, then because you're the deep guy, like you know who's going to be coming to you.
Absolutely. And I think like for most, like this is what most, I think high school players are being coached in terms of man coverage, because you're not getting, you're not counting on your linebackers in coverage as much in high school football. So even if you're not blitzing, right, usually it's, hey, that guy's more of a run stuffer and like the DBs are covering and the linebackers are doing their best, right? And you're not counting on, that middle of the field help from the backer. But I think this is a good example of, okay, you as a defensive back need to understand where your help is all the time and seeing like these are both cover one, right? So I think a lot of people think, oh, cover one guy's high, I know what that is. But again, as you talked about, like the coverages stay the same. Like I remember playing cover one when I was like 13 years old, right? But you get to university, you're still playing cover one, but the expectation for your understanding is so much higher, right? Yeah. The other key point that I thought you made there is between your pre-snap prep and then eliminating reads, most of the time you can take, okay, there's this big picture Canadian offense. People are moving all over the place. All these receivers off the line of scrimmage. By the time they hit the line of scrimmage, or at least 3 steps after, you can usually get it down to, okay, like 2 or 3 options, right? Like you were mentioning there, if you're this free safety, you're saying, okay, I'm going to help out this Sam linebacker. Well, he goes out at 5, right? Well, now that route's dead to me, right? Next, right? Okay, did this guy, maybe now you expand to the next 2 guys who could be coming down the seam or whatever. Or like you mentioned, if this guy goes under, okay, great. Now I can almost go double this other route. And I think that's the difference between picks and pass breakups, is being able to like eliminate those routes immediately, as opposed to like covering space and then breaking on the football, being able to get to where the ball is actually going.
Right. And then to get there even quicker, like after you kind of like what I like to do when I'm playing safety is I feel like I can do this well, but it might take a while to develop a skill. But like if you just look at the quarterback, sometimes you get a feel for like where the receivers are without actually like taking time to look at them. I'm not saying I recommend doing that, but where I'm going with that is that once you know where you're going to move with the receivers, make sure you take a look at the quarterback too, because oftentimes, like especially at younger ages, they're just going to look at where they want to throw it. So, once they take their hand off the ball, they tilt their arm up, or like they're just getting ready to throw. That's a perfect time to break on the ball and go get yourself some picks.
Absolutely. And this was just a different variation that I threw in because I thought it was interesting. Again, it's in that kind of cover one family. Here they've got the will linebacker out of the box. It's actually the will linebacker out of the box covering number 2 weak. So, I mean, in high school, maybe that's not super common, but ultimately it's in that family, and you're going to see the single high player end up high again. And now the boundary half is going to become that kind of robber in the middle of the field. So again, it just speaks to, hey, like, yes, there's versions of cover one. And cover one can be very different depending on which one you're playing. Again, here, it looks like they're playing more of that outside leverage, funneling the ball back into that hole player, trying to entice the quarterback, like you said, to, put the ball, theoretically, he's seeing this outside leverage. He's going great. Middle of the field's open, right? Like that last cover one, the middle of the field is open. Well, now there's somebody actually come to rob that.
Right. And that's a big thing too. Like if you look at the guy's actual responsibility, like what he does in this play, like he just runs here, he moves off here. Like when you're covering guys, it's a bit different because you gotta like be running with them and everything. But especially for zone coverages, like everything you learn right now is gonna help you so much in the future. So especially like if you're a younger guy out there, or like if you're not, just keep learning, keep watching this video, because the more you know, like you could just be in that position and make a play. Like whoever's watching this, imagine yourself, like ask, can you do this? Like just run a few steps this way. Like if you're in the right position, you know what's gonna come. Like you can just be a decent athlete and still make a lot of plays in Canadian football just by doing what's going on. So that's why they always say, like, once you get to university, it's a lot more mental than it is at previous levels. Like you get a bigger playbook, and like once you know what you got to do, like everything just becomes so much easier. So don't forget about the mental side of the game. That's why we're doing this.
And one of the biggest things I think for me is like the leverage piece. And the other reason I really like this clip is like if I pause it here, okay, all three of these guys are in outside leverage, right? Normally in if you're playing man coverage, it's like basketball. You want to stay between your guy and the bucket. Well, for football, it's you want to be between your guy and the quarterback. Right. So you don't want to give them that inside leverage usually in most man coverages. Well, here, because this is like you're playing cover one, but you're trusting you're going to have a hole player and a high help player. Well, now these two routes break in. That should be like worst case scenario man to man, right? What do you run against man? You run slants. Well, here you get kind of like this downfield dig. Now you got that robbed, right? If one of these was a post or if one of these becomes a double move, okay, we got that covered. And you look at the two corners playing inside leverage, right? Well, because this guy's way out here, right? Like what route's he going to run out there? Nothing, right? 97% of the field is inside of him. He's coming back to that inside the field. If he runs vertical, and you actually see it on the bottom here, like this is a great example. And I don't know whether I didn't prep you on talking about press man, but this is a great example. You see the boundary corner, like just run this guy out of bounds.
Beautiful.
Right? Like what route are you throwing there? So again, like understanding, okay, cover one is one high. Why are they doing this video? Yeah, cool. But understanding like how leverage plays into that and understanding how there are variations of cover one, you've got to understand what your team is actually running when they say cover one. Because these two man-to-man techniques could not be more different. Off man, outside leverage, open key versus press man, online scrimmage, inside leverage. All because they're recognizing where their help is and they understand the concept.
Mm-hmm. I'll give my biggest press tip right now, just because we're looking at it. And this is just like, I think it's really ignored in football at non-professional levels. The biggest thing you want to do is just get him off of his line. You can see the DB does a great job making contact other than bubbling him out. Receivers, quarterbacks, all they work on is timing. So if you mess that up, even if he gets open at the end, like he pushes him out of bounds here pretty much, so he's not going to catch it. But even if he gets open, you mess up the timing, it's just going to throw them off and it's probably going to be incomplete. Don't just open up right away, get a hand on him, keep your feet moving to bubble the receiver out. That's just the best thing you could do in your press man.
Yeah, and it's funny. I've talked with a couple DB coaches that I really respect about this, and like I played O-line, so I couldn't have been farther from the defensive backfield as a player.
It's similar.
It is. And the big thing I always found, and it's funny, you watch the NFL, it's a little bit different, but like in your pass set as an offensive lineman, you do not want to open your shoulders, right? Because as soon as we use the same term, open the gate, right? And it's kind of like, to me, it's like, okay, you're putting all your chips down by playing press, and then you're trying to take the bet back. You know what I mean? When you open your hips, like you're saying, hey, I'm going to come up here and press you. And then if you open your hips, you lose all the value of actually making that move. Right? You're down there anyway. If you're going to do it. So when you keep those shoulders square, same as a pass set for a tackle, if this guy, like you said, has to bubble, timing is shot, even if you don't land, like obviously it'd be great. And like I coach Godfrey Onyeka, who played boundary corner for us for a few years, who's in the CFL now. And I mean, he got his hands on some people, but even if you don't get your hands on people as well, your body position forces them out of the timing they want. Right. And again, you're inside leverage. So he's not going to go across your body. Right. If you just, like you said, you be a solid athlete with an understanding of the technique. If I have inside leverage, I keep inside leverage. Right. I'm going to force him now to the sideline. And then you see here, just to try and get by his hips because he doesn't open the gate. Now this guy's fallen out of bounds. Right. It's a great point. And you talk about opening the hip or opening the gate. That's like the exact same coaching point, that we talk about the offensive line position.
Yeah, that was said beautifully with the betting analogy.
It's
Uh,
to me, it's like, and it's funny because like it's kind of similar O-line wise. It's like trying quick set a guy, right? Like if you're gonna quick set a guy, then do it. If you're going to, or cut block guy, if you're gonna cut block guy, do it, right? Like if you're gonna, like, you have confidence in the technique you're using, right? Which is what we all want our players to do, and as
right.
athletes, that's what we want to do.
And if you're like tall, like Godfrey, you said you coached him, or if you're shorter, like I am, like as long as you have your technique right, you could cover him.
Yeah, it's a much, I think, like you said, and obviously the waggle's tough. So pressing the guy off the line of scrimmage is a whole other deal. But in that situation, for sure. Good question here in the chat. What do you guys think about playing press in the Canadian game, where you have to give a yard? Like, are
I'll
you
take
still? And I know you play corner. Like, are you still a proponent of that?
I'll take this. So I play corner half. My favorite position, I play more this is safety actually, but I'll definitely like this question. Um, I've talked to a lot of different people about it, and I'm all for it. Even if you watch like the States mainly, they still give some space. I don't really know why, but I don't think giving a yard's like that big of a deal. It's like as long as you keep your eyes in the right spot on the receiver's hip, you keep your feet moving, so you keep him in front of you. Like he moves a bit in, you take a little step in. So eyes, feet, and then you get your hands in the right spot. It's I don't see the problem with it. So it's really just all about your technique, and you can't just be like you have to want to press him also. Like it's a mental thing. So if you're at a rivals camp and you're this close to the guy, or if you're playing Canadian football and you're 3 feet away from him, a yard, as long as you do the technique and you do the right things, like there's no reason why you can't get a good press in.
Yeah, and I think part of it too is like you have to have a purpose for it, right? Like if you're just pressing to press, like some guys obviously like that's your, like if that's your what you do best, then it's a huge part of your game. But if you're say choosing like, am I going to use this or not, right? It's probably not like what you wake up every day doing really well. So like if you're choosing when to press or when not to, I think the biggest thing is just understanding like the matchup that you're in, right? So for me as an offensive lineman, I'm not going to short set fast guys, right? Or I'm not going to consistently short set fast guys for no reason, right? Or if the protection's going away from me, I'm less likely to short set fast guys. Like you got to kind of understand like where's my help. Even the split, like if he gets in a tighter split, and again, I played far away from corner, but I've coached a bit of defense at the high school level, OPFL level. And when you get a guy with a tighter split, now he's got more of a two-way go. Like he can run in and out breaking routes, a little bit more challenging. But if you got a guy that can do it as an offensive coordinator, I don't want them to I want to throw layups to my best receiver, especially if it's the boundary corner, right?
Right.
Like it's hard. It's much harder to me if you're going to press the boundary corner. Like you got to find ways to help them sometimes, but that it's much harder if you just give up those layups as an offensive coordinator. Like we're just going to take them, right? So having it in your bag for sure is a good one.
Mm-hmm. And something else to help. I talked about this a bit with your alignment, but what I find it helps with me with press also. And if you ever watch cornerback Guru, I think he changed his name on YouTube because he got in trouble with the NFL. But he always talks about like deceiving the receivers because lots of guys line up. They're saying, okay, what's the receiver going to do? Then I'll react to it. But if you come with a plan, like that's how you're going to win your one reps. So if you start like inside, take a step outside just to mess up the receiver. Maybe give like a false shoe with one hand, stab with the other, buzz your feet, maybe like go and jam aggressively once, the other time like back off. So like have a lot of different skills that you could do to always be playing with the receiver and deceive him to help you out there. That's gonna help you win a lot of the battles.
For sure, 100%. I mean, talking about press man, we're getting into cover two man now. So just quick, we've already talked about a lot of the man coverage fundamental stuff. When we talk about two man, or some people call it combo, what's that look like, and why do defenses use two man?
So cover two man, as you could have guessed, is because there's two guys deep, and it's really protecting against the pass a lot. So you got everyone's manned up here again, 1 2 1 2. Then the two guys are off here. It looks like they got a 4-man rush with it's probably gonna be a hole player here, but cover two man or either hole or king the running back. We just got two guys deep, and it's really just more help against the pass. The problem with cover one is that on the outsides it's really wide and open because the free safety can only cover so much ground in the middle. In cover two, it's a little bit of a problem if these guys get too spread out and leave the middle of the field open. But there's ways to fix that with just like your alignment and making sure like these guys are doing a good job covering them. So cover 2, just more on passing downs. You'll see it on second and is that what it is right now? Yeah, it looks like second and long right now. That's
second and 10.
You'll normally see cover 2 then the most.
Biggest challenge is you only have 5 guys in the box, obviously. And I think people hear cover 2 and they think like, oh, it's like American like zone cover 2. Very, very different, right? Like it's like cover 1, but you only have half the field. So these guys are still playing hard man. You'll see like a lot of these guys hop into trail because you both have that vertical help, right? So these receivers are really worried about making sure, hey, don't let them throw, anything underneath. You want to be underneath your player, and there's a lot of different ways to do it in terms of leverage, but again, making sure you understand, hey, what routes can this guy run from this position?
And this is when you see more of the catchman, which we talked about a bit before. You could see the DBs are lining up closer, and they're probably gonna try to get some hands on and then run with the guys. If they end up in trail like this, that's fine. Like you're not beat because if the receiver runs deep, he's gonna run right to your help. So it's all about knowing where your help is and changing coverage based on that.
Absolutely. This is super underused coverage. If there's high school DCs watching, this is like my go-to on
My favorite one. If you have good like linebackers and D-line to take control of the box, like I love cover 2. They're not gonna pass it very much on you.
100%. So now we've kind of talked about I think I might have missed our cover 0 clip there. There we go. Got it out of order. Here we go. So, I mean, we talked about the other versions of man. Obviously, everyone's playbook is going to have some level of cover 0. How does that differ? And in terms of technique, like what are you more so doing now as a DB?
So the biggest thing with cover 0 is that you're sending a lot of pressures. So you're not going to have anyone off to help you really. Whoever's not covering a man is blitzing the quarterback, which means that the ball is going to come out quick. So don't expect like double moves, expect single moves because the ball is going to come quick. Like receivers won't have time to do all the stuff they love to do in one-on-ones. Like as soon as he makes a move, like the ball's probably coming out. So what I notice lots of teams do is just wait off their DBs, either like slowly backpedal or just keep their feet hot and ready to break off the receiver. With cover 0, most teams line up inside shade a bit more just because, like there's no help anywhere in the middle. And what you notice is everyone's just covered down. So corner half. I guess he's on 3. He's pretty far inside here.
I think it's the free safety. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, he's creeping down. It looks like. Yeah. Then somebody picks up the running back if he releases.
Yeah. And the big thing is just obviously now, like you're not, like we talked about leverage being based on where your help is. Well, now you don't have any help, right? So you got to be able to play inside leverage. You got to be able to play the vertical route all by yourself, even from the slot. So you're going to see a way different demeanor, like in terms of this style of man versus the last clip we showed, kind of polar opposite situations, right? 2-man, you have all the help, right? And cover 0, you have no help. So transitioning, kind of into zone coverage and the fundamentals, I think this is where in Canadian football things get a lot different from the American game. And, I was trying to break down whether it's CFL, it's mostly CFL clips tonight. And there's not a ton of like the traditional cover 3 being played. Obviously the passing games are pretty advanced and present some challenges that cover 3, especially with pro quarterback play and pro receiver play is tough, but there's some clips here where the contours are pretty similar. So I thought we just kind of roll through those, kind of talk about cut and hold, right? Which are 2 basic, calls that I think every team's got in their playbook capacity. So you kind of got both those contours in this clip. Do you want to just talk about, cover 3 and what those 2 cut and hold contours really mean?
Mm-hmm. So like even going back to high school, most of the time the calls are either man, cut, hold, or like some type of mix of them, but cut and hold are the biggest thing. So make sure you pay a lot of attention to this right now. I think this is a good time to pause it right here, so don't play it yet. So cover 3 guys are deep. So if it's going to be the half and cut, like that's a free right now, but it's either the halves or the corners that are usually deep. Sometimes it might be like one half on one side, then the corner on the other side just to mix it up. But we'll look at cut first. So cut would mean the corners are low. That's how I draw it. Then the halves are often deep. And these are the 3 deep guys in the coverage. And on the very basic level, like there's 3 deep guys, but when you really look at it, what's happening here is, how's that look? That's a bit bad. Does that show up nice?
Yeah, you're good. Yep.
Okay, so what really happens here is both halves and both sets of corner are reading 2-1. So they both got their eyes on these guys, like when we get into talking about cut and carry right now. And what's happening is that this corner is gonna, how would I start here? So I'm just drawing this a little bit. Okay, yeah, so when we're playing cut and carry, like corners are low, and pretty much like zones usually turn into man like at some point, but at the very beginning for cut especially, like these guys are both reading 2-1. So they're gonna watch this receiver, and if he ends up running an out route, I'm just gonna clear this out quick. He ends up running an out route, that's when the corner is gonna, stay down, maybe jump it, get a really big hit. Or if he ends up running in, like I'm not sure where you want me to go with talking about all the different possibilities, but if he runs an in, like they could just call it off to the other side. But at the basics of it, like the corners and halves are usually reading 2-1, and the corners are the low man there. Something that your team may or may not do is cut and carry. So just like basic cut would be the corners stay low, but cut and carry would be if 2 and 1 both run verticals just to make sure that they're covered off, then the corner will also stay with him and run vertical with him as well. So it kind of turns into like a cover 4 look there. There's a good amount of different things I could talk about cut with, like 70-30s and different like plays, like how you react if he runs like a deep dig or things like that. So where would you like to take it?
For sure. So, I mean, I think just this is a good clip because you see like kind of the 2 different contours, right? So here's our Sam linebacker, our free safety. So this is our boundary corner. He's playing low, right? And you talked about reading 2-1. His eyes are very clearly on 2, right? Mm-hmm. So now when 2 runs that out, now he sits the out, right? But he's running the outbreaker. You'll see the corner's the flat player. He's going to drive an underneath route, and the half can then fall on top of the vertical. Here we have the opposite, right? So we got the half is low to this side with the corner playing off. And then in true cover 3, that free safety's in the middle of the field. Now, for the most part, I think when you're getting into that conversation about cut and carry, it all stems from the fact that really, and we could talk about double hold because, it's still, I'm sure play at the high school level. And if you're playing a team that runs the ball a lot, like I'm sure it's still, a viable coverage if people are running the football. Maybe the quarterback play is not as good, but that's when you have both your corners off and your half is actually the low player. Now, so for both sides, basically both sides would look like this with your half low, right, and your corner off. Great if, you get bubble screens or something in the flat, you have your half and your linebackers out there, but just really tough if you get like the traditional 4 verticals, right, because now your free safety has to play both sides of the field. When you play cut and carry, and really this is going to like lead us into our conversation about cover 4, right, and the next clip I have is double cut, so we can kind of take a look at that and then get into cover 4. But, here you see the free safety. Even though he's playing in the middle of the field, because the ball's on the hash, he's defending the field side, right? He has none of 2 in the seam. Mm-hmm. So playing cut, you're talking about cut and carry. If both these guys go vertical, the boundary half's going to take the inside vertical, and the corner is going to have to run with number 1. And that's the transition from, okay, it's cover 3, but it kind of plays like cover 4 if you get that certain vertical. And then the hold obviously being the half is low, and you don't need, if you get 2 verticals, you have the free safety in the corner, usually because you're playing cut on the other side. You broke it down really nicely there in terms of like talking about cut, and really hold is like more of a quarters tool now, right? Like no one's playing like double hold. You're playing like half low to one side and playing either the other 2 guys off or
with hold, like even in high school, so like some teams in the OUA play double hold like here and there, but usually you don't see it. In high school I did see a good amount, and I think the biggest thing with hold is the halfbacks disrupting the receiver in front of them for the vertical route, because if you could get a nice jam on them, then expand into where number 1 is your zone after that, but get a nice jam on the receiver to slow them down so the free safety has time to be able to cover both guys. And when I was playing Warriors in summer football, like I was at safety, and like I was pretty good at covering, like playing hold. Like we played a good amount of double hold, and it's because the halfbacks were good at like jamming the receiver, slowing them down. So me as safety was able to cover it up. But imagine this: you're playing halfback, you just expand to your zone quick, you let him run right by you, and the guy on the other side of the field does the same thing. What's the safety gonna do? Like there's two guys streaming downfield, so make sure like if you want to get recruited, your film noticed, make sure you're doing the small things right, getting a nice jam, disrupting the vertical route. And if there's small things like if he's not running vertical, if he runs like in a radical route, like you don't have to, but if he's running a vertical route, you better disrupt the route to help out your teammates.
100%. And here you just see double cut again, more of like a true cover 3 contour. You got your 3 deep players here. I'm sure one of my annotations not coming out there. You got your 3 deep players here, right? And really you end up with 5 underneath. And who knows, here they could both be playing cut and carry. I've seen teams do that where both corners will carry it, right? Or one of the 2 corners will carry it. But this is like when people talk about double cut, right? Both corners are down. So both the corners in this sense are playing the flat. Both halves are playing the deep third. That's really all we got to talk through in that clip. And you see it here with like the verticals to the field, right? The halfbacks being high keeps it a little easier for the free safety, forces, the windows to make the throws are further away. Obviously, farther throw is a more, challenging situation for the quarterback to actually complete. And you see here the linebackers widening out as well. So like you get in those zone windows, right here, they give up the back on the check down, but you really see how playing that double cut, both your corners are the flat players, both your halves are the vertical players.
Mm-hmm.
And if you guys haven't yet, I know a bunch of people have, help us out, like the video, all the normal YouTube stuff. I hate pandering to that, but help us out. The more people like the video, the more people will find it in the algorithm. And if you haven't yet, subscribe. It helps us out a ton. We're trying to do our best to keep the good content, coming, and the more subscribers we have, we're getting close to 1,000 now, which will be huge for us. So now we kind of transitioned to cover 4, and it's funny, like this clip again looks very similar in terms of it's a hold contour to the field, but a cut contour in the boundary. And the other thing I really liked about this clip, as you look at it, and we can kind of start talking about different versions of cover 4, but this looks a lot like those cover 1 clips we looked at the start, right? Pre-snap. You mentioned, changing your alignment, based on the snap. You're going to see here this half come down to reroute number 2, this half fade into the seam to be able to play 1 to 2 vertical. Free safety's got 3 to the post. And then you've got your high player in the boundary. And then this corner, people talk about the boundary corner being on the island, right? He's playing that cut and carry technique. So if this guy goes vertical, if his X receiver goes vertical, then he's going to have to play it. So that's kind of how you get to that, the subtle difference between cover 3 and cover 4 to me is cover 4, the free safety is going to declare to a side, and cover 3, he's got to play down the pipe. He's got to play 2 weak to 3 strong, right? Whereas here, he's really got 3 strong to 2 strong on the vertical.
Yeah, like cover 3, it's always about the guys, the men you're covering, but cover 3, it's a lot more about the people, and cover 4 is more about the landmarks, because you're going to always have somebody around the number area, the hash, and the numbers. So like it's a lot more basic with like the spacing out whenever you play cover 4.
For sure. And you see here, like you mentioned, a great point, and it's funny, the last time we played football in this province, I was coaching OPFL football, and the Essex Ravens won the league. Great team, really good defense. And they played a ton of double hold. Their halves did a great job of rerouting receivers. And you kind of see that here. It's a little softer. Like this guy's not playing like super low. This guy looks like a pretty shifty receiver here, but you see him force the outside release, right? Kind of get in the way of that timing, pushing this guy out to the corner, right? Making the corner's job easier. And then 3 doesn't go vertical here. So 2 is able to help out. But the thing I really liked about this clip is you can really see where you're trying to force the football, right? In a hold contour. Okay, go throw this deep out, and the half is going to push like crazy to get underneath it, right? And you see the half, that's a long throw. And it's a long throw with a guy rallying to the football, right? Like I don't think, even though this corner's playing off, right? If I'm this quarterback, I better be getting the ball out right now. He resets, right? If this ball gets thrown, that's pick 6 the other way.
That's the thing with cover 4s, or some coverages. Lots of times you give up like the short route to the field side just because it's the longest road to get there. And offenses don't want to throw it; they want to throw it deep and get big plays.
That's the main reason why a lot of people run cut in the boundary, right? Like that's if you play cut in the boundary, you can play hold to the field. It's a super long throw. But if you play hold to the boundary now, right, you can take that little stop route for 6-8 yards, and then somebody's best receiver has the ball 6 yards downfield. You actually got to get them on the ground, right? It's a high percentage play.
And the thing is too, if you're playing, like say you're playing cut, can you go back to the start of this clip, please?
Yep.
It's one thing I don't think we've really mentioned it yet, but if you're playing hold here, then this inside defender doesn't really have to move at all. But if you're playing cut on this side, he's going to be off. So this inside defender, he sees pass and he wants to expand out there. He's got a longer way to go here. So it's just one thing. Like if you're playing safety and you rotate it down, if you're playing half or linebacker even, just be wary. Like if there's a guy outside you and hold, you don't have to move it as far. If it's a cut, you got to get out there a lot quicker and expand to that zone.
100%. Now, there's a couple more clips to cover 4 here. But this is kind of a good like blank canvas, I guess, to talk about, variations of cover 4. So we talked about cover 3 or 3 deep guys. I think if people have been listening to this, they get the theme that, cover 4, we're going to have 4 deep defenders. But if you want to kind of draw on this and talk about, what are some other versions of cover 4? Like we just looked at the boundary corner, the boundary half, the free safety, and the field corner being your 4 vertical guys. But like, what are some other common versions?
Right. So you got corner, half, free safety, corner, half, and then Sam is what most people play with as, their DBs, depending on the personnel on that. So between that, you could have really any combination, and I might as well draw them out quickly. So say the boundary corner sits, you could have half on the numbers, safety, half, corner. You could have both corners sit, and then have half on the numbers, safety, your Sam drops, and then half out here. You can do the same thing with both halves staying low, corners on numbers, safety here, Sam drops. You could even drop your will, but aside from dropping the Sam, you could bring the free safety into the box too, or just stay here as like a robber, and then have your corners and halves off. So there's a good amount of different ways to play it. And, the more you got, the more you can confuse the offense and better chances you get for making plays. So the more you know as a DB, like you want to be able to play all the different positions and understand it. You'll always hear coaches say, if you're just playing corner, you got to know what this guy does. And it's true. Like when you go to the next level, maybe you're backup and like he gets hurt and he gets hurt. So you have to jump in here. So you just got to know what everyone does. And it just all makes sense there. Like if it's cover 4 guys are going to be deep. Who's short, who's deep, talk to him before the play, and it's pretty much the process of all of it.
Yeah, and we just got a good question about when you use each coverage. But one other point I want to make is like no matter what the variation, you're going to have one of these 4 jobs, and it kind of depends whether you have a 3 receiver service, 2 receiver service. Obviously, 1 receiver service gets a little different, but if you have a 2 receiver service, you're going to have 3 coverage players. If you have a three receiver service, you're going to need 4. Right? Because in every quarter's coverage, you're going to have some sort of like outside vertical player, some sort of like on the numbers, right? You're going to have somebody playing the hash. I call it playing the post. You're going to have your flat player and you're going to have your wall player, right? And between those 4, you're going to be able to handle the 3 routes from the 3 receivers. So for example, if you get like 4 vertical, right? Well, now your corner might still have to deal with 2 routes, right? Or over here on the 3 receiver side, okay, if we get, we're going to have our post player, we're going to, and now have our wall player. And the reason, some people say, okay, we're going to play cut and carry, and he kind of becomes your flat player and your numbers player. Or this guy will play off and say, hey, you're going to be the numbers player. And now the will, right, has to play from the curl through the flat, right? Whatever side, if you're 3-on-2, right, you're going to have someone with 2 jobs. If you're 4-on-3, you might have someone who might have to deal with multiple verticals. So when you talk about like moving guys around, like for example, we could say, hey, let's have our Sam go high, push our free safety down, right? And now our Mike's got to be the wall player, our safety is the post player, our half is the flat player, and our corner's the outside numbers player. Right now on this side, your half becomes the flat player, your corner becomes the numbers player, and now you can rotate your free safety to become the hash player on the other side. So I think Coach Rob Smith, you posted there. Can you briefly explain what situations you use the different coverages in? Let's just watch our last clip just because it shows a couple of these variations, and then we'll get into that because that's a great question. So here, you see it's the only real difference. It's still a hold contour to the field. Is now you're getting, okay, this corner isn't playing cut and carry, right? So it looks like I can't see this is just a 1st and 10, right? So you get your hash player, numbers player, and now the will, instead of just being the wall player, he's got to play the wall through the flat, right? So he's basically the only difference is now if you get vertical out, right, the will's got to chase the out instead of the corner traps the out. Basically is your big difference there in how that would play out. So again, you see here really clearly you get your 4 vertical players, okay, and your 4 underneath guys. And then this one here, it's just different. All right, now to the field, it's a cut contour, right? So, we're kind of using cut and hold as both like cover 3 and cover 4. It depends on like how you teach it, right? But your cover 3, it's still saying who the flat player is in the coverage, right? So here it's cut. Our corners play in the flat. Our halves play in the numbers. Now they got a reduced split, so he's not all the way up to the numbers. But your free safeties play in the post. Boundary corners play in the numbers. Boundary half is playing the backside hash mark. So same as the last clip on the backside, but just flip to the front side.
Right.
And this is a great example too. You see this linebacker here. We haven't talked a ton about linebackers, but his guy immediately goes out. So he doesn't hang on it. He doesn't look back at the quarterback. He finds his next target. Like you talked about finding landmarks and versus finding, players. I think sometimes linebackers, there's so much space to cover. Great coaching point is just find the next guy, like get to the next threat. If you've let this guy go, don't kind of hang out in no man's land, go take away the space. Because now you see, okay, you got these 2 guys running these routes and this is, covered down. This guy's in a great situation to play 70-30 and drive this as it comes out. And ultimately quarterback's got to hold the ball and takes a sack.
That just reminded me of always a great tip to bring up. If you see, and any clip really would work, but
I'll run it back to the same one there.
All right, perfect.
Oh, I ran by it.
So, as a defensive player in football, you probably get really hungry and you just want to hit guys all the time. But sometimes it's best to wait off and not hit them right away. So if you're in a zone and say you're this linebacker and you're in this area and there's a guy who runs into your zone. I know it's not the exact coverage right now. I'm just drawing it out. But you might want to just jump down right to it right away and try to line yourself up for a big hit or a pick. But the thing is, in football, oftentimes they're trying to throw something behind you. So usually as linebackers, wherever you see something in front of you, it's just because they're trying to squeeze something in behind you also. So don't jump down to it right away. The term we always use is leverage it. So like stay in between, wait off. And then when you see the ball start to get thrown, then you go after him.
Especially here, right? As this he's the wall player. This goes right to the flat. Both these guys are looking at this guy going, hey, we know that this route is either going to go in or out, because if they're running this guy to the flat, they're like you said, they're trying to window shop somebody in behind, and 2nd and 8, make them throw this. And you see here, like he doesn't throw it, right? And it's such an underappreciated thing. And I did we're doing Fundamental Fridays now on our social media, and we did one on 70-30 technique, which is basically leverage it, same idea of hey, let's take away the vertical first and be in a position to drive on the underneath route. It's a great example. So we talked about cover 0, we talked about cover 1, we talked about cover 2 man. We've talked about cover 3 variations and cover 4 variations. What to you, like when is the best time to use those coverages? So question in the chat, when are you looking to use those coverages? Based on, game plan or whatever it is. Like when's your go-to time to use cover 1? When are you more likely to play cover 4? That type of stuff.
So I think a big thing is knowing what you're expecting from the offense, and then also knowing your players. Like if you hypothetically, like if you had a great defense, you could man it up all the time. that frees up your linebackers in the middle to like play in the box more, and that'd be great. But you got to know like what you're expecting from the offense and know your players. So if you're expecting like lots of corner routes, maybe it's good to call cut because then you have like a corner out there to kind of help with 70-30. If you're expecting like lots of posts, maybe like it's good to call cover 1 or cover 3 just because you have the player in the middle there. So I think it's really about the coaches or like players like watching film and knowing what to expect, other than kind of planning like what do we have that could cover this concept really good. And what I've noticed coaches like to do is like drop the route combinations, look at like how often they run it, like what times of the game they run it, and then like based on your calls, like that's how you're probably going to script the game to make your calls for what your the type of coverages are.
Yeah, and one simple thing, and I was thinking about doing a video on this because I was thinking back to 2016. I was DCing in the OVFL. We had a really good defense. One of the things that we did was, and we would see really different offenses. Like at that time, people were still like we'd see some like double tight, like ISO stuff, and we'd see 5R spread. And one of the things that helped us a lot with high school guys is we would basically be able to run our same 5-man pressures with either cover 3 behind it or cover 1. So on first down, we would just like live in that, right? If it was depending on what we were seeing and really what the route concepts were, we would call some of our like base 5-man pressures to try and stop the run like you want to do on first down, and still be like not being straight man. And then on second down, we played a ton of quarters and 2-man, which is not a revolutionary concept. Like that's like football 101, right? Like stop the run on first down and cover down on second down. Right. But it just kind of simplified all of our game plans because first down, it was like, okay, what runs are we getting? And we would check some of it to formation, which is the more interesting part. But, what runs are we getting? So which one of our pressures, like, do we want to bring an edge blitz or we want to plug an A gap, whatever, and play like we showed like cover 1 behind it, or even we would still play cover 3. So basically we'd lose that like Mike in the middle of the field in the coverage. But especially in high school, like there's not a lot of teams throwing the ball in that zone, right? So, that's something I think situational. I might do a video on that later too, but cover 1 and some cover. Like I don't play much cover 3 anymore, but really, whether you're playing cover 3 or cover 4, like if you're looking to mix in zone coverages, I think the key is just in how you teach it, right? Like I think if you're talking about cut and hold contours as like the base, you can make it cover 4 or cover 3 just based on the rules you give certain players. Like you might say, hey, if the boundary corner gets a vertical, you got to run with it, right? Or if the in this play, if this, like I've seen teams, if the Sam gets a vertical, like the 3 receiver side, they're going to carry it to the other side of the field. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of different things you can do.
It's fun.
Yeah, there's a lot of different things you can do, but I think that's the best way to do it is to try and build your concepts together. So like your man concepts build up each other and your zone concepts build up each other. Anything else you want to talk about tonight? Just, understanding coverage, some great points there, man. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, I'll say for all the athletes out there watching this, make sure the coverage is everything, but the more you can do, the better. So don't forget to learn about special teams, get the reps in. If you're returning kicks, if you're blocking people, getting off blocks, just going to make you more attractive for all the levels you go up in football. So you want to be able to do a lot, run track, play other sports. The better athlete you are, the better chance you'll have at getting recruited, and just the better you'll be in your position. Also play other positions on the field. Like in high school, lots of people play quarterback, or like lots of people at the next level play quarterback in high school. Like I did a good amount. Because the more you know about the offense or the more you know about other positions, like it just makes a lot more sense to you. Like think about math. If you have like a whole unit and you only know like one lesson, or if you learn like the whole unit, like it all makes sense to you in your head. So like, if you're moving around, you'll just be able to make more plays wherever you go, whatever position you play. And, the more you learn, it can only help you out.
100%. Yeah. And I think that's a big thing. And playing both sides of the ball helps guys all the time. And it's an opportunity you often get in high school. Another question here. And for this, I'll have to say, Coach, check out Pick Six Athletics channel, because there's too much to go in here in one question. But must do's for DBs in the off season. And I know, like watching some of your stuff, like the detailed, resource you're looking for their coaches is all on either coach's channel or even just on their Instagram page, man. Like there's just so much good stuff. But, if you were going to say, hey, in like 1 minute elevator speech, what should DBs be doing right now in the off season?
So you got to think about what you're going to be doing in the game. And like a basic drill package would be, I'll just say this at the start, maybe like a tackle drill just to work on like gearing down and all that. But that aside, you want to work on your different types of breaks. So like pedal breaks, like your 45s, 90s, 135s, complete hip flips, breaking like, in all the angles. Then you're also getting your running breaks in. So like if you open up and then breaking on all the different angles there, so like you want to get your breaks in, maybe tackling drill, then also working on your man skills. So like what I really like to do is a drill where like you're running with the receiver and he got either break in or out, and you're just working on keeping your eyes on his hip and like staying on him to read his body language and all that. So like pretty much it's hard to say for the whole off season. Like obviously you want to get faster, you want to get stronger, maybe a bit bigger depending on your body, but in your weekly workouts, like you want to make sure you're definitely hitting all your different angles and types of movements that you'll actually be doing in the game. Maybe like a press man drill, like reading a receiver or getting reaction drills in there. So definitely check out the page. Like I have a lot of DB drills on it on Instagram and on YouTube. Then if there's any more questions, like send me a DM on the account. I could give my input on it too.
100%. And like I said, guys, it's fun. Like part of doing this is I can be pretty selective with like who, comes to the channel and shares information through us. And like, I've made notes off of stuff I've seen on Coach's page already for when I get back with my DBs, with Cambridge Lions, the team that I work with. So, it's great stuff and keep it going. It was funny. We were talking before, and like, I think we kind of both got started in this the exact same time, about the exact same way. We're like, you know what, we have more time than we should right now with COVID. And, it's great to see, all the Canadian resources that are out there. So, Coach, thanks so much. Thanks for everyone who stuck through our technical difficulties there. It's a new problem. At least it was interesting. It's not the same problem we've had before, but we got up and running. That was great stuff. So thanks a lot, Coach. I'm going to take us off the live here, but thanks for everyone for being here. And we'll be back next Tuesday night.